Hey guys, how's it going? It is Kyle here with another Diablo 4 video. And in today's video, I want to talk about, with this concept, how to 10x your damage. I think once you understand this, you're going to have a good system for being able to organize and prioritize which gear is good, which gear is trash, and then also be able to look at a piece of gear and know if it's actually good or not. So that is going to be the topic of this video. First thing is going to be how I organize gear, because I think having a good organization system to make things efficient, because there's going to be a lot of times where you're out there with a group, everything's go, go, go. You don't have time to look at your gear, don't have time to evaluate if it's good or not. You want to have a good system in place to be able to just drop this and save it for later and then come back and be able to cleanse this out on your own time when you're not holding other people up. What I like to do is I put all my weapons here. I put all my, basically everything on this side here. Then I put the amulet and rings here, and then I put all the consumables here. I know this is a very overwhelming process, and I think a lot of people just don't even want to bother, so they just throw it away, whatever, because they don't want to look at it, because this is a very overwhelming process, and you have to actually be able to look at each piece to really start to understand if that piece is good or if that piece is bad. Then the next thing is going to be understanding your build, understanding which stat priorities you need to have. But then the big part of this is going to be understanding the potential roles of each piece. I would say this is the most important part of this, is understanding when you look at a two-handed piece, for example, which roles am I looking for? And then also which ones can it roll? If I look at this and go, oh, I really want +2 to my whirlwind, I should know that this is not going to happen. It will never roll here, but it can roll over here. That is something 2 ranks of whirlwind can roll on my gloves here. And then another even more specific thing is going to be ancestral uniques actually break all the rules of this, and they'll roll either things that don't exist on that piece, or they'll guarantee substats on here. So this is going to be the big outlier. When you see an ancestral unique, know that that is very specific, and those specific substats that we're looking for here are also specific to those kind of pieces. If there's one takeaway from this, is going to be understanding, or at least getting a vibe of what to potentially roll on each. And then once you kind of know that, then you know if a piece is good. And then also with the advanced tooltip, you know the ranges of the potential rolls themselves. So you know if you got a good roll. For example, this 14.9 crowd control duration is very good because it is almost at the end. The top end would be 15.6. Same with cooldown reduction. That's going to be 12.3. And then in the case of this build, I really like cooldown reduction. So then when you look at these things, yes, the crowd control duration is a high roll. Yes, the cooldown reduction is a high roll, but there's going to be priorities of the specific subsets you're going to want on your piece. And even if something rolled really well, I might not necessarily want that. The thing I really care about this headpiece, for example, is that cooldown reduction. As a barbarian, I really need that for the shouts, especially with the recent nerfs. That's where it's going to come down to understanding your build, so this can apply to everyone. This concept should apply to every single class. You just need to understand your build, understand what you're looking for, and then understand what can roll on each piece. And then from there, you need to be able to go through and look. So like this one, for example, is an easy decision because this is all that's going to roll on a ancestral unique. You just hope for a good roll on something like this. Same with this one. This is also... this happened to be a sacred unique, but it's also a unique piece that has very specific roles. Okay, so now let's look at a piece that's not an ancestral unique or a very specific type. Let's look at this. I know that critical strike damage is just not going to roll in this top one where overpower is. It just can't roll there on a 2-handed mace bludgeoning weapon. It just won't do it. So then I know that that's a wash. I don't care about overpower damage. It doesn't really matter to me. It could roll higher, but for me, I don't care. The critical strike damage, 28 to 42, that's what I'm really looking for. That's my number one stat when I'm looking at this. Whatever build you're going, maybe it's critical strike damage, maybe it's overpower damage. It doesn't matter. What matters is understanding the concept of knowing that I really like critical strike damage. I know critical strike damage could roll on this, so it's going to make it very easy going through 2-handed bludgeoning weapons. If it doesn't have critical strike damage, I'm probably not even going to look at it. And then next, damage to close enemies. Obviously, I'm going to be doing stuff up close, so that's very good. Damage over time. I'm bleeding a ton, so damage over time is really good. Strength is my main thing. Yeah, so strength here, you can check, is increasing my skill damage and also increasing my armor. Then also in Paragon, you need that to hit certain thresholds. So strength is fantastic for me. So I'm really liking strength there. So all of these things all add up to, okay, I really like this piece. And then at the top, damage per second, specifically for Barb, I don't really care about that because the damage is all coming from here because I'm making sure to use this type of weapon for this build because there's other benefits there. So knowing that the damage is coming from here is important because what if I get a piece that has like 50% critical strike damage or 42%, that would be like the max roll at this specific gear level. I'm going to be, okay, I would prefer to have the critical strike damage. I don't care if the damage per second is lower because that's not impacting my damage at all. Same with over here. Damage per second doesn't impact my damage overall. I'm just trying to spin to win. But the thing I really do care about, this is actually a super good roll because it has critical strike damage. And then I know the God roll on these, and I don't even look at them if they don't have this, is they got to have critical strike damage and then critical strike damage again. And then luckily for me, this is actually a pretty high roll at 28.7%. So doubling up on the critical strike damage and a good roll there. Then damage to stun enemies, that could be better. I'm not stunning people. You could take ground stab as a Whirlwind Barbarian, so that would be a situation, but it's still pretty minimal compared to what if this was like damage to vulnerable? That'd be infinitely better. Core skill damage, very good. And then damage to crowd control enemies for a Whirlwind Barbarian is fantastic because I am slowing them. So these are the things you got to look at and understand these concepts to be able to know that you're getting a good piece of gear. And ideally, you're going to be looking for things that are hitting like 3 to maybe 4 of those actually rolls. You know, obviously getting the God roll is incredibly rare. So getting 3 is something that is realistic or relatively realistic with a lot of grinding, but you won't know what that roll is if you don't understand the max potential of that piece and what those pieces could be. If you happen to find a piece that has everything you're looking for on it, you can roll that final slot. It is very expensive, but you can do it. And you would go to the occultist, go to the final tab, it's called the Enchant item. Here's an example of a piece that I haven't done it with. I really like the 4 ranks of Warcry. I like the damage reduction. Well, fortified, the 19.6% damage for 4 seconds after killing an elite is okay. But then the 4 ranks of leap, I don't care about at all. So I could, if I wanted to, do this. You know what, just for the video, I'll do this. So this currency here, and you can see the currency. So we're looking at 101,000 gold. That doesn't really matter too much. The thing that does matter is these Forgotten Souls that I'm also still covering. So these Forgotten Souls is the thing that really matters right here with this. And why it's so rare is you got to do a Helltide event. You know, for example, I did a Helltide for about 30 to 45 minutes, somewhere around there, and I got 5 to 6 of these. So this is something that's going to take quite a bit to farm. Also, this is something that you're going to want to upgrade your potions. I believe you're going to need some of these to be able to upgrade your last potion. So these are something that's actually pretty rare too. Just keep that in mind. But we'll just do this for the sake of the video so you can understand. But this is that final piece. Like, I actually really like this. This is the final piece that I don't care about. You just roll it, and then now you get to choose out of a couple things. So I get to choose out of intelligence, total armor, no change. I'm going to go with total armor. I think that's pretty good. And then boom, it is now changed. And it is rolled for total armor 9% bonus. So now all 4 of those affixes are actually contributing to my build. You know, ideally, you would just probably, in my case, want to roll temerity in the leg piece. But, you know, in this situation, until I drop it, this is actually a pretty good piece. That is basically the concept I'm trying to explain here for increasing your damage massively. The difference between my damage now with all of this, everything rolled with critical strike damage on here is insane. You know, and then also finding a good roll of the whirlwind here has been massive. Like, you could use the normal imprint, but the critical strike chance difference of a max of 18% at the min roll versus 42%, what I got now, is just night and day. So then that's another thing there to be able to boost up your damage after you got all this critical strike damage. And you can apply this to yourself. This is a very tedious process. It's going to take a lot of grinding, but once you understand it, you'll be able to easily look at each piece of gear and evaluate it pretty quickly if it's good, trash, or maybe you want to save it for another build. And that, guys, I am out of here. Peace.